Hey guys, welcome back to another video slash part 2-ish of my anthurium tour. Wanted to do this all in one video, but it would have been a mega long video. So today we are going to be repotting a bunch of anthurium on camera, and I'm also going to be answering your questions one by one, and then at the very end I'm going to tell you some of the anthurium I have on my wish list. Typically I give you a roster, but it seems like the consensus is people like when I don't do a roster and just kind of show you who I'm repotting as I'm doing it. So that's what we're gonna do today. Plus, Vince is gonna be home in about an hour for lunch, so I wanna make sure to get in as much filming before he gets here, and then we will pick back up after lunch. So before I get started, I'm going to throw in next to me here the soil mix that I'm gonna be using for my anthurium today. I do have maybe like 3 or 4 of them in pon, and I'm not sure if I want to keep them in pon or if I want to transition it to the tree fern fiber soil mix. Typically before, my instinct and my go-to would be pon for anthurium, but I've just really been loving this soil mix a lot. You'll notice that I didn't add a ton of worm castings, and that's because I ran out. So in replacement of that, I am going to be adding some slow release fertilizer. This is just the 14-14-14 Osmocote. I have had kind of a scary experience with Osmocote in the past with pon and adding way too much. I know better now. Yeah, I think it's gonna be totally fine, especially since most of these anthurium are not living in very hot areas of the house. And Osmocote is, well, this kind of Osmocote is heat activated. Also, just a friendly reminder when you're mixing substrates, especially if it's indoors and the substrate is dry, I would recommend using a mask because you don't really want to be inhaling all that stuff. So yeah, that's what the soil mix is. It's looking really yummy today. So yeah, let's just get started with the first plant. There's a new leaf that is about to unfurl, and so I just wanted to get it repotted before that guy came out. It's in a mix already. It's in a soilless mix actually. So it's basically the mix that I did, less the soil. But she is popping out of here and I need to get it into a much bigger pot. One of the most frequently asked questions that I got was, what is your go-to substrate or mix for anthurium? So obviously I showed you, and then my second choice would be pon. So I'm not gonna go in depth about that. The second question was advice for roots that keep rotting. What is your go-to rehab substrate? I do have a lot of experience with rotting anthurium. Historically, I could pinpoint it to temperatures. So I find that in lower temps, especially like over the winter, if you are not keeping your anthurium in a controlled area, meaning you know, it's getting a certain amount of light from the grow lights every day, and you know, there's not controlled temperatures, or there's controlled temperatures in your house, typically it's gonna just follow like a year-long growing pattern. But if it is getting sort of what is naturally given to it, so like light from outside only, maybe sitting next to a drafty window or something, basically just not as a controlled environment as somewhere like my plant room, you will notice changes in terms of how vigorous your plants are going to grow, how much roots are going to keep growing. And so yeah, one observation that I made is that in cooler temperatures and lower light, you really want to be careful with your watering, especially if you're doing something like no drainage. So with rotting anthurium, yeah, I would chalk it up to something that is light and temperature related. I would chalk it up to maybe like hitting it with fertilizer when it's not growing. A lot of the times if you're over fertilizing essentially what is a dormant plant, all of that nutrients that are going into the vessel, the plant really can't do anything with it, and so it just sits there, and so you can get some burn on your roots sometimes. And then also sometimes it's just your substrate. I feel like with like the substrate that you use for your anthurium and really dialing in your conditions to sort of match what it's in, it can be kind of tough. And so yeah, you just really want to be careful. Like if you are using a denser mix, of course, you know, you're gonna want to be more careful with your watering if it's not getting a ton of light, if it's not getting warm temperatures. There's this one root in here that I'm really trying to save from this dang drainage hole, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to. Oh, dang it. That's okay. I think also in the same breath though, when you think about root rot, a lot of us automatically go to too much water. Camera's crooked, it's bothering me. A lot of us go automatically to like, oh, too much water, over watering, but it could also happen if you're not giving it enough water. So you'll notice with dry rot, if you take the roots out and you notice that it's like basically flat and hollow already and there's like nothing in it and it's just like the shell of, or like the outside tissue of the roots, more than likely that died from dry rot. So underwatering or just like letting your plants dry out is also not a good way to avoid root rot or root loss in general. You just want to be regular with your anthurium in terms of watering, because I find that they're not as forgiving as something like a Hoya or a philodendron. When they get thirsty, the roots are quick to react to that. They're quick to react to that, and once they're toast, it's kind of hard to come back from it. And because anthurium roots are so thick and juicy, it can get really nasty in your substrate fast. In terms of my go-to substrate when I'm dealing with root rot and anthurium, I actually really like using a combination of tree fern fiber and perlite, or just straight perlite. I just find that those two substrates are very, very forgiving. There's a lot of airflow that can move through the substrate. It's not very heavy and dense. I would avoid rehabbing anything in pon. It's just a little bit too heavy and too compact on those roots, in my opinion. Another good way to rehab your anthurium, and I feel like this is not really advised a lot or not really talked about a lot, but water. Water is a great way to save your anthurium stem if it's rootless. I find that my anthurium bounce back a lot quicker with water in terms of rehydration. So yeah, you could give that a try too. You just want to make sure that your stem is like incredibly calloused. I know, whoa, that was a lot lighter than I thought. I know there are a lot of people who don't follow the callousing practice. Amanda, my friend Amanda Bunny, is included and she's totally fine. But if you want my personal opinion, if you are dealing with an anthurium that is rotting, I feel like callousing is very important. So I was able to get it out of there and the roots are looking good. Not too bad. I mentioned in my anthurium video that I am going to be removing some of these leaves because it's really bushy, and I try to not remove leaves if I have a new leaf coming, but honestly I just have a lot of faith in this plant. So I think I'm not going to remove the oldest leaves, but I'm going to remove the two that have the most cosmetic damage just to free up a little bit of space. Actually, I will remove the, oh, this isn't even the oldest leaf. Whew, okay. Sorry, I know that was painful for some of you guys, but yeah, I feel like this is just a much easier to manage plant now, and I can bury it a little bit deeper into the vessel. So this is the pot size that I am opting for. We're going from this little guy to this one, and I'm just going full force with this like upsizing pot thing. It's been working really well, and I believe in it, and I feel like I'm getting the hang of it. So we're just gonna keep doing what works. But I am gonna do like a pretty hefty layer of leca down at the bottom. The next question is how and when to use calmag. How to use it? I don't really like mixing my calmag with other nutrients. I tend to just flip-flop back and forth now between using TPS1, which is my main fertilizer, and then I'll use calmag the next week. But if you are gonna mix, I believe the rule of thumb to avoid nutrient lockout is to add the calmag first to the water and then add your nutrients. But right now, yeah, I'm not typically mixing it. I'm alternating between one or the other. What was it? How and when to use? How and when? When? Oh, when. When to use it, really anytime you see growth on a plant. So the benefits of using calmag, it's primarily like it strengthens the cell walls of your plant, and it also like help regulates the transport of other nutrients within the plant or to the plant. Essentially, it's just to aid in the strengthening of your plant on a cellular level and also on a tissular level, the plant tissues itself. And I might be wrong, but I also believe it helps, like, you know, I mentioned that it aids in the transport of other nutrients into the plant, but I think one of the big ones is that it like helps the plant utilize nitrogen more, I believe. So there are a lot of benefits to using calmag, and I have certainly witnessed myself the benefits of using calmag. I think one of my biggest testaments to the effectiveness of calmag was with my soderini that I struggled with a bit in the beginning. I think a lot of people who have owned a soderini or even a soderoy from like a baby plant, it's kind of hard to size up. It stays a little teeny tiny thing for a long time, gets stuck in the sheath, you get really wonky, deformed leaves. And when I started hitting it with calmag regularly, it glowed up. It glowed up so good. I'm gonna be inoculating my anthurium today with with TPS billions. And I'm just gonna be sprinkling some on the roots here, and I'm also gonna be watering with mica water as well. Let's fill this dude in. I can't believe it was living in that tiny little pot for so long. And I do think this is the biggest plant I have to repot today. Everything else is on the smaller side, which is great because I swear I have a really big plant repot coming up soon, and I'm just like dreading it. I need to do my Florida Beauty, I need to do my El Guapo, I need to do who else? Probably my Frydek. Like, there's so many that need to be repot. Let's not even start talking about my big Thai constellation. I don't know what the plan is with that. Oh, that's what I need to add to my shopping list. I was gonna see if I can repurpose like a trash bin as a clear pot, because I don't know what I'm repotting it in, to be honest. I also forgot to mention in the intro, and it's the one thing I said that I was gonna say in the intro, but there is another video going up right after this one. So this one is scheduled for 10 a.m. and I think the second video is gonna go up around noon or 12:30. And it's not like a full video, it's not like your typical upload, it's more of an announcement that I wanted to make and declare. So make sure you stick around and watch that one right after this, if you can. I want to cover as much of this stem as possible and get some nice roots, which is why I was trying to peel back the sheaths earlier. Hopefully we get some really nice, big, delicious lily pad leaves soon. I would be so happy. But anyway, this guy is done. Repotted, should be good until the remainder of next year, I would hope, considering we sized it up by quite a bit, but it was a pretty big root system. There's soil everywhere. Okay, I don't know where I'm putting my pots that need to be washed. Guys, I've actually been so good. I don't have a box of laziness anymore. I don't know if you know what that is. A box of laziness is this clear bin I used to keep in my plant room at all times to put in vessels, dirty vessels, and then when it would fill up, I would just go in and just wash the whole thing. But I have been so good at washing my vessels right after I've repotted, and it's just been so nice. It's so much less stressful than like the idea of having to wash an entire bin of vessels. I mean, typically, I just put on, you know, like a podcast or something. My light turned off. No wonder it was so dark. Yeah, typically I take that opportunity to like listen to a podcast, and it does make time go by a lot faster, but it's still not a fun thing to do. All right, the next one is one plant that I'm not sure, it's in pon, and I'm not sure if I want to keep it in pon or if I want to move it to a tree fern fiber mix. This is a Gerald Best, by the way. Doing a pon to soil transfer is not impossible, but I do typically prepare for some leaf loss and a little bit of shock, but I don't know, I'm not really enjoying a lot of the growth of my anthurium in pon. I mean, I don't know if I'm like unhappy with it, it's just I've really liked using this mix so much that I think I'm telling myself that that's like the mix that I want to go with now. And the vessel that I am putting it in is this guy, so it's going from this teeny tiny thing to this one, and again I'm going to be doing pon at the bottom. I mean, like a down at the bottom, you know what I meant. So yeah, going back to the question about calmag, when I use it is regularly. Whenever my plants are growing, I am fertilizing, and again I'm gonna do TPS 1 week, calmag the other week, and I'm just gonna keep flip-flopping back and forth. Next one is, what is your fertilizer ratio? I hate this question. I hate this question because I don't know it. There's a part of me that wishes I was the kind of person that like dialed in everything to a specific number just so that I can tell you guys easily what my ratios are. But truly, I am the type of person who literally just like eyeballs it and just does what feels right. So I keep all of my fertilizers in little pump bottles, and honestly, like just depending on the size of the jug that I'm using, I'll just put in like a couple pumps. So for example, this is the jug that I use the most. I repurposed some old orange juice jugs, and these are 2.5 liters. So for 2.5 liters, I do 4 pumps of my TPS in there for a regular fertilization, or I do 3 pumps of calmag in that bottle. If I'm like more heavily feeding my plants at a certain time, which is not very often, I'll maybe pump it up to like 5 pumps of TPS, 5 or 6 pumps of TPS per 2.5 liters, or 4 pumps of calmag. The reason I tend to go less on the calmag is because the color kind of scares me. I don't feel like I've ever had any issues. Oh, there's my scissor. I don't feel like I've had any issues in terms of fertilizing with calmag, like over fertilizing with calmag. There's so much on here. Maybe I need to move this guy closer. I don't recall a time where I over fertilized with calmag. There's, I mean, a chance that it could have happened, but not any that I've like clocked in my mind. But because calmag is like this, okay, is there a ghost or is this broken? What is happening here? You need to stop. I think this is a sign that I finally need to get that softbox light that I've been eyeing. Guys, it better not be a ghost. Now I'm spooked. But yeah, it's more so the color of the calmag that freaks me out. And I always feel like it's too much if it's like so like super, super red. The reason I don't get as scared with TPS is because it's basically clear, and like kind of no matter how much you add, it's not going to change the color a whole lot of the water, so it just freaks me out less, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's not very scientific, you guys. That I'm not the channel for like the specific measurements. I kind of just follow my heart and do what feels right, and I feel like it's been okay. But now that I'm using pots with drainage, I feel like I can probably fertilize a bit more. Why? So yeah, anywho, I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer for you in terms of the ratio, but that is how much I use, and that's the best answer that I can give. How do you acclimatize more mature anthurium? Is it normal for them to lose leaves? I did talk about this a bit in my last video, or in the last anthurium video that I just did. And I always basically expect import leaves to drop, especially if it's newer, or not newer, especially if the leaves are larger. But that is not always the case 100%. I've had many imports where it did completely fine, didn't lose a single import leaf, and pushed out new growth, and to the point where I had to chop off the old leaves because they were so old. But I would say that my norm in terms of imports are that the leaves are gonna drop. So before, when I used to import, my goal was like, I want the biggest, nicest leaves possible, and I used to like chase that high of just having these big, massive, gigantic imports in my house. But now I'm a little smarter. I tend to try and seek out the ones that look like they're gonna be the most successful in terms of acclimatizing. I want a big, nice chunk size, just in case there is rot, just in case I have to chop back. I want a lot to work with. I don't always go for the nicest leaves because, of course, after it goes through transport and stuff like that, being imported, you're gonna see a bit of damage to the leaves, but that doesn't necessarily reflect the plant itself. So rather than going for the nicest, biggest leaves, I'm looking for certain traits in a plant that I would hope would continue on with the next leaves that do grow in my care. And now I actually prefer going smaller in terms of my imports. One, it's so much easier to like find a place to acclimatize it, and two, they just acclimatize so much better. I'm kind of over this whole high of having like these nice big import leaves and then eventually losing them. I'm just, yeah, that ship has sailed. Now I just want the easiest and least stress-inducing acclimatization process as possible. And if that means a smaller plant, then I am all for it. But I will say that yes, especially on larger imports, it's super normal to lose leaves, and it doesn't necessarily mean that your plant is doing bad or something's wrong with it. A lot of the times, if your plant is gonna refocus its strength, refocus its attention, I guess, a lot of the times it's gonna be towards that root system first and establishing a brand new root system rather than trying to just maintain those leaves. And I've also found that with imports, sometimes it's even beneficial to chop off those huge leaves because the plant is exerting so many nutrients and so much strength into preserving the size of those leaves with not a great root system. And so a lot of the times, or a good amount of the times, if you chop off the leaves, it's just like, okay, now we're gonna refocus on the root system. You get nice big roots, and then comes your leaves. So kind of a trade-off, but for me, with imports, my main focus is going to be the root system. I've got a nice big layer of leca down at the bottom. I do have some exposed roots at the top, not like soil roots, but like aerial roots. But I think if I can keep the top a little bit on the damper side, I think they'll eventually find its way into the soil. So I am not super worried about it, but I am going to try and top it up as much as possible without it being an issue when I water it. And now she is done. I'm still getting used to seeing these big old pots with the small plants. It's like their pants are too big for them, but all for a greater cause. The next one that I'm gonna be doing is my anthurium strappy velvety. This leaf right here grew in my care, and it was a pretty decent size jump. So before another leaf comes, I'm going to get it out of here. It has not taken over the pot just yet in terms of roots, but the other plants that I have in this tiny little vessel, the roots have escaped, and I'm probably gonna lose a bit of them. So I don't want that to happen with this plant, so we're just gonna be proactive. And I probably don't even need to like untangle this a whole lot, but I kind of want to see if there's some root action. Oh, okay, I can see some roots. Okay, we're good. Yeah, I'm not gonna disrupt this little ball here. I'm gonna keep it intact, and I'm just going to fill around it. This is the pot that I assigned for this plant, but I'm almost wondering if I can go a little bit bigger. But again, this root system is not ginormous. I might regret it, but I think I'm gonna stick with this size. And then just to kind of give examples for this last question regarding acclimatization. So here is a picture of my most recent import, which is a Twinsa velvet, anthurium Twinsa velvet. Acclimatizing just fine. There are some new roots that are finally popping out. Kind of took a long time, but I'm just happy to see any new roots in general so that I know that it is alive and well. But you can see that it is happening at the expense of the leaf. The leaf is starting to go. I'm not too worried about it though, because again, my focus is on the roots. But then you have a plant like this, which is my longisimilobum. Didn't lose any import leaves at all, growing just fine and pushing out a new leaf. Same with my Polydiflorum narrow that I also imported. Haven't lost a single leaf. Didn't really live in a greenhouse for that long. And yeah, so I'm not saying that with any import, like just expect you're gonna lose the leaf, like it's guaranteed. That's not true. There are many circumstances where you're gonna find that it doesn't really react at all to being imported. But if you do start to notice leaf decline and new root growth, I wouldn't like get so concerned right away. I actually do think that this was a good size for it. I mean, honestly, if I could have gone slightly bigger, that would have been perfect. But the next size jump up for these square pots is quite big, and I almost think it would have been too big. Like, I don't want to get like ahead of myself. I'm not that confident in my abilities yet in the size up method, but I think this is good. Lots of more space to grow here, and hopefully all of these that I'm sizing up today are at least going to be okay until the summer. If these outgrow it before the summer, I don't know where I'm going to put all of these plants. Speaking of the next size up, this was the next size up, so quite big. Like, I mean, it probably could have lived in here, but I just feel a little bit better about this one. Next guy on the roster is my Bessier Afflux, my little bugle looking guy. As a reminder, this one is in a teeny tiny vessel, outgrowing it, and I am probably gonna lose these roots, to be fully honest with you. I don't see myself being able to save it. If you do not own these pots, it's hard to convey to you how impossible it is to take those roots out of those slits. They're like little tiny knives. Even if I try and like cut this pot apart, it's probably still gonna get severed, especially since this root is so freaking thick. So I'm just gonna, don't hate me, I'm just gonna pluck them off because I don't really see another way. Don't look, everyone, don't look. It's gonna be fine, roots grow back, okay? But other than that, the rest of the roots look totally fine. And again, I am so far from the camera. Why am I so far? Okay. Next question, next question, next question. Anthurium living outside greenhouses, do you fertilize in the winter? Yes. So my anthurium that have been living on my living room shelf, even though we're like in the dead of winter right now, they're still growing a lot, and that's because to a certain extent they're still getting some form of controlled environment inside of the house. Like, you can think of, I guess it just depends where you live too. Your house is essentially a greenhouse, and even though you're not using humidifiers, or you're maybe not using heat mats or heaters or whatever, grow lights, to a certain extent, your house is going to act as a greenhouse because they're not outside. And so that's kind of what's happening with my anthurium out there. Even the plants that are not directly under a grow light, they are still growing, and they're actually growing at a pace that has surprised me. Basically, my rule of thumb is if you see growth on a plant, you can fertilize it. I typically stop fertilizing for any plants that have not pushed out any new leaves in a certain amount of time, or like for what's normal for that plant. I just kind of leave those alone. I think some people have said that you should be fertilizing those plants because it still needs new nutrients to maintain the leaves that it has. But if you think about it, if you're not seeing any new growth, those nutrients are just in the plant, and the nutrients are doing its thing to sustain the leaves on that plant. It really only gets disrupted if you're gonna cut the plant, if you cut leaves off, or if the plant starts growing. So if a plant is growing, I say fertilize. If it's not growing, just leave it be, give it water, and leave her alone. She's a bear, she's hibernating. Good beginner anthurium that aren't basic. I think everyone's definition of basic is gonna be different, but I'm guessing what they meant by asking this question is like plants that aren't as easy to find or as common. I'm just gonna start naming anthurium that I've had in the past that I have not really had any issues with. A crystal mag, I think probably a lot of people would consider this plant to be basic because it's so common, so cheap, you can pretty much find it anywhere. But that plant, the hardiness of it is unlike any other anthurium I've ever met in my life. I swear I have given that thing less than adequate or even acceptable conditions, and it has continued to just grow, and not even just grow, but grow very large. So if you want a plant that's gonna make you feel really good about yourself, I say the crystal mag. A straight crystallinum is just so beautiful. I am currently on the hunt for a very nice crystallinum. I think that's next on my wish list. Forgetii, not the Forgetii silver, but the Forgetii with the darker venation or the neon venation. Some of them are gonna run you pretty high if it's like a really cool mutation or has a really cool leaf, but you can still find some dark Forgetii that aren't gonna like break the bank, and they're just so fun and so cool to grow. But honestly, any like dark leaf anthurium right now, because like the craze for anthuriums is so high, they're all kind of gonna be expensive. So I probably am not the best person to ask because I'm not constantly seeking out anthurium to buy. I acquire a lot of my anthurium through friends, trades, and a lot of them have been gifted to me. So yeah, I unfortunately, I just don't really have a good grasp of like market value for things right now. These little ones are so fun to repot because they're just bam, 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 and it's done. Next one is my AOS Carla. This is the one that crawled out of the pot, crawled out of the drainage hole, and then grew into another one. So that one is effectively toast. And I'm going with the same vessel size as the last one. I hate breaking roots. I hate breaking roots when it's not my choice. It's funny, when Alice saw that these plants were in this pot, she was like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? And I was like, you know what? Hindsight is 20/20, babe. Hindsight is 20/20. I'm just gonna get rid of these. I'm not ever using these again. It was a lapse in judgment, and I should have never put it in there in the first place. What does the term selfed and clone mean? So a selfed plant is basically, I'm gonna try and explain it as like easily as possible. Ooh, we've got some naughty roots on this thing. Oh no. But lots of good roots. So we had a bad thing happening and then we had a good thing happening. So not too shabby. So a self plant is, let's say if this plant pushed out an inflow became receptive, and I had another inflow on the same plant that produced pollen, and then I did the dirty for both of them. That is a self plant because the pollen and the inflow was on the same plant. It would be different if, let's say, I have this AOS Carla and then I have a second AOS Carla. If I use the pollen from one other plant and used it on the inflow on this one, that would be an AOS Carla crossed with an AOS Carla. That doesn't automatically make it an AOS Carla because it's the same plant. Self means it was self-pollinated, so pollinated with its own pollen. And then a clone of a plant is basically just a cutting of a plant. Oh, come on. Yeah, it's basically just a cutting of a plant. And so if you take a cutting of a plant, you're gonna get those same features from the mother plant. It's like an exact clone of it. But if you took seeds from this plant, even for a self plant, these seeds are gonna be variable. So my advice to people is if there's a plant you like a certain specific plant you like because of features that it has that other plants don't have, I would recommend trying to get a clone of it as possible, if possible. Because even if, yeah, you got seeds from that exact plant, they're not all gonna look exactly like it. Okay, so I was kind of hoping for better news with this root system, but it's not bad. We still have something. I still think it's gonna be good enough to put into this larger vessel. And now that it's not gonna dry out as fast, I think I'm not gonna have issues with dry rot again. I wonder if I can show you what dry rot looks like. This isn't the best example because it's so tiny. I have shown examples of dry rot before. I just can't remember which videos. I don't even know why I'm bothering, but if you look at this root here, it's hollow and it's flat. Like it's just kind of left, kind of like when a snake sheds its skin and it just leaves like that outside. That is typically what dry rot is gonna look like. Wet rot is different because it still has a lot of that tissue inside of the casing of the root, but it's just gonna be really, really mushy and gross. So yeah, that's just kind of the difference. And this one specifically was dry rot, and I knew that it, you know, was dry rot because I let it dry out. And that's what happens. But really, like if you have really teeny tiny pots, you're obviously gonna have to water more. It just dries out a lot faster. And these have been living in a greenhouse, and so yeah, it's been really hard to kind of maintain the moisture levels in it. So hopefully this helps. I think what I'll be doing with this is just for all of the plants that I've put a leca reserve down at the bottom, I'm just gonna fill it from the bottom and basically bottom water. That's what I've been doing with my dorayaki, and it's been growing like a hot damn, but she needed a bigger vessel like yesterday. Next question and next plant. Oh my gosh, there's soil everywhere. Do you feel like upsizing pots quickly has helped with more growth? Absolutely. I would be lying if I wasn't the slightest bit concerned about upsizing my pots because I am growing a majority of my anthurium on shelves, and pretty much all of these little baby plants that you see that I've repotted already, as soon as it pushes a second leaf, they're going on that shelf. And I know that it's gonna grow a lot slower outside of the greenhouse, but I just prefer having my anthurium outside. It's just my decision. And yeah, so anywho, with that said, what was the question again? What was the question again, Sherman? Oh, do you feel like upsizing pots has quickly helped with more growth? Yes, I have definitely already observed that plants that I've sized up a lot faster are pushing out leaves that are bigger than what I would normally see before. So when I was going with a pot size that I felt was equivalent to the size of the plant, I would have a very, very slow progression of size growth. So yes, the leaves would size up, but just ever so slightly, almost to the point where it's not noticeable. Like you have to really like look at them side by side to be like, oh yeah, it did size up. But with this new potting method, it's like noticeably larger, like to the point where I'm like, holy smokes, like that was fast. And that was not normal for me before. So as much of adjusting as it's taken to having pots that are a little bit bigger or a lot bigger, I would say the payoff is pretty high and worth it. Right now, my biggest challenge is really just being able to keep up with watering. Yes, I could make my mixes a bit more dense, but I don't want it to be so dense to the point where it's wet, not just damp, but like wet for too long. And so I do choose to use a mix that's a little bit lighter, has a little bit more room for, like, I think the word is anaerobic activity in the vessel, meaning like air is able to move around. And so yeah, I just choose to amend mine a little bit more, and I just need to get on a better schedule or into better habits with watering plants that have drainage holes. I definitely don't regret it though, and I don't think that I could ever go back to just potting up slowly. Yes, it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to accommodate much larger pots for plants that are not so large, but like the trade-off, I guess, is that you don't have to repot as often and things can just stay in the vessel for a lot longer. Here's another root that has suffered at the hands of dry rot. But yeah, I do think that the trade-off is worth it. I just have to condition myself to get into better habits. Not better habits, but new habits. Because I was so used to the water not depleting as fast and no drainage. But yeah, I don't think that I would ever go completely completely no drainage. That doesn't make sense. I don't think that I would ever go and switch my entire collection to pots with drainage, because I am still very pro no drainage. I'm comfortable in no drainage. A lot of my plants have thrived in no drainage, and it like just works so symbiotically with my schedule and my watering habits. But anthurium are just a different beast to me. And you know, I'm just trying to kind of roll with it. I don't want to be so stubborn to the point where I'm not willing to change, or I'm not willing to compromise with my plants if there is going to be a better way to grow them for me personally. I still know a lot of people who grow anthurium perfectly in no drainage, but it just hasn't worked well for me in the past. But if you want my official stamp of approval in terms of sizing up your pots, I'm gonna say go for it. And I do think that you're gonna see the benefits of it almost immediately. And it's, yeah, I'm just grateful for Jessie, my friend Jessie, who inspired this whole thing and made me feel better about doing it myself. Let's do my Voldemort now. My big sinister guy. This plant is just, so good, you guys. I'm so happy to have it. I don't even think I can really explain in words how happy I am to have this in my house. So these are also really terrible pots. Not as bad as these. Like, look at how tight these drainage holes are. They're like little razor slits. These ones are a little bit bigger, but the sides of them are almost like unfinished, like it's not rounded off, and so it's just so sharp, like it just like, it's like a knife. So I really don't want to wait until something escapes. And these roots look really good right now, and I don't want to fudge it up. So let me just try and show it to you. I might remove some of these lower leaves, but it's looking good in here. I'm not really gonna loosen it a whole lot. Just enough to, again, let the roots find its new pants. And I do think I'm gonna take off, the first leaf that it came with, just because it's a little bit bushy. Not that it's a bad thing, but I want to be able to bury some more stem and kind of let the leaves breathe a little bit. So the pot that I'm going to be potting in is this guy, and it's basically going from this to that. Next question. I'm going through this quick, you guys. Do you foliar feed anthurium? No. Oh, Vince is home. Hello. Huh? I am. I'm just gonna wrap it up really quick though while you're here. So obviously Vince is home now, and I do have to probably eat lunch myself. So before we get into this next question, I'm just gonna pot this up really quickly, and then we will continue after lunch. But it's going crazy. Okay, so I'm back and I'm fed. So the question was, do I foliar feed my anthurium? I used to, yes, and this was when I was still growing anthurium in a greenhouse. But I've found that the fungal issues and the spots on the leaves were more predominant with my plants that I was spraying. And so now that they're outside of a greenhouse, to me, I just don't really feel the need to foliar feed them. If anything, at the very least, was I starting on a plant? Oh, I finished the Voldemort. And now I'm gonna move on to my AOS Green Form Magnificum from Lauren. This one is gonna be another pond to soil transfer. So anywho, at the very minimum, what I do is I will try and put a little bit of calmag or my fertilizer into like a squeeze bottle or a spray bottle, and when the leaf is just emerging, I'll spray it. But that's it in terms of foliar feeding any of my anthurium. I do not foliar feed them the way that I foliar feed my philodendron and the rest of my plants, really solely for the reason that I'm trying to avoid fungal spots. I've been able to eliminate a lot of the issues I was having before. One, by not growing in a greenhouse, and two, by not keeping the leaves wet. I'm not saying that foliar feeding was the root cause of that, but just for me being a little bit more cautious now with how I'm caring for my anthurium, I've essentially eliminated foliar feeding altogether. But I do still foliar feed the rest of my plants when I can. But now that a lot of my plants are getting so much bigger, to be honest, I haven't been foliar feeding as much. Yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm trying to supplement it by foliar, or by feeding via the root system a little bit more than I was before. I'm gonna rip off 2 of these ugly leaves because I don't want to look at it anymore. And then I'm gonna go into this big pot here. Moving right along, how much light do anthurium really need? Honestly, this is a really difficult question for me to answer, just because I don't think that just like any of your non-anthurium plants, I feel like different anthurium can withstand different strengths of light. Some anthurium, they can actually become darker in higher light, and some get bleached, some get lighter. And so honestly, for me, it's really just a matter of experimenting myself and observing, even at the expense of having ugly leaves, getting bleached leaves. It's the best way that I learn what a plant likes. So typically, if I have a plant that has papillolaminum in it, something like pap, where it's an like super understory plant, it's gonna be under like a lot of the shade and isn't getting a ton of light, I tend to give those less light than my other plants. So in terms of prioritizing who's gonna go under a grow light, the pap would be the ones that get sort of the cast of the light or don't get any grow lights at all. And if you watched which video did I show it in? my Ripsalis video, I kind of walked around with my LTH meter, the light temperature humidity reader, and I showed you like what a typical overcast day kind of looks like at my house. And at best on that shelf, it's probably getting like 40 foot candles of light, and that is like basically nothing. And so yeah, it is tougher in the winter months because I don't want a ton of grow lights out there. I just don't have the perfect setup to be able to provide them with a good amount of light year round. And because I live in Canada, most of the year is gonna be sort of like dark and overcast like this. So I really try and take advantage of the summertime when it does get a lot of direct light. But despite having not a lot of light, they're actually growing really well. Maybe they're not growing as fast and as robustly as it would under controlled environments or more controlled environments, but to me, that's just the trade-off. When I had my anthurium here in my plant room, it was just a little bit too warm. It was a little bit too dry, and they just hated it. The humidity is even lower in my plant room, surprisingly, than it is out there. And so it just made sense for me to switch it, put my anthurium out in my living room, move my philodendrons in here. And that's just kind of what we've made work over the last year or so. To answer this question, how much light do anthuriums really need? I mean, I guess what you can just provide them with. I don't have many anthurium, like established mature anthurium growing in like really, really bright, strong lights. There are some that are living under a grow light directly in like on the living room shelf, and on a non-sunny day, just the lights itself, it's probably providing anywhere from like 200 to like 400 foot candles of light, which I would say is decent. And if you can stay around that area, you're still gonna notice growth with your plants. But I think even providing it with a little bit more can help with more robust growth. But again, like it really just depends on the plant. And unfortunately, I'm not the person to talk about certain plants, like which plants like less light, which ones can withstand more. You really sort of just have to experiment on your own and see what they like. Oh, but one thing I'd like to sort of add on to that is if you notice that an anthurium is pushing disproportionately long petioles to the size of the leaf, the plant is probably looking for more light. So you kind of have to take on little cues like that, because I have anthurium that do push longer petioles in lower light, but the leaf size is equivalent to the petiole length. But there are some anthurium that I've had in the past where it'll push like this crazy long petiole and then the leaf is tiny. And so that's kind of my cue that like this plant is telling me that it's searching for more light and to give it a little bit more. So yeah, try and read those cues, whether it be petiole length, the color of the leaves. Like if you notice that the leaves are darker in higher light or lighter and more bleached or chlorotic looking in stronger light, just let the anthurium speak to you. Is it easier to grow anthurium in a greenhouse? Next one is the Forgetii X, most likely Forgetii red crystal from Woohoo Plants. Luckily, only the teeniest little root has escaped from the slits of death, so I'm getting it out of here at a really good time. Sorry, going back to the question, do you find it easier, or is it easier to grow anthurium in a greenhouse? I don't know if I would necessarily say easier. Certainly in a greenhouse you can control the environment a lot more than if you were just kind of letting them hang out like in a living room or somewhere where there's not going to be an enclosed space or grow lights around it. But again, going back to my struggle with growing anthurium in a greenhouse, I was dealing with a lot of the fungal things that I hated a lot, and it really was taking away from I guess, the joy in growing anthurium, because yeah, I get these nice big beautiful leaves. Like, I've grown some of the biggest anthurium leaves in a greenhouse that I haven't really been able to accomplish yet outside of a greenhouse, but these big beautiful leaves would be riddled with spots and yellowing edges and a yellow halo around the leaf margin, and it's like I wasn't really even enjoying the leaves. So to me, it's actually been a more enjoyable experience growing them outside of a greenhouse, and also letting them sort of have more space to grow and not like hit each other inside of a greenhouse. But I will say that I do think it probably is easier to grow anthurium in a greenhouse, like if you had a big tent or something, just because you can amp up the humidity in there, you can keep it at a temperature that you kind of want, and I don't know, in general, I just think that growing inside of greenhouses is kind of a luxury. But for me, the benefits of growing in a greenhouse, anthurium specifically, of course, it just hasn't outweighed the experience that I've had growing it outside of a greenhouse. So yeah, I'd never go back. But listen, I don't want people to watch this video and listen to my answers and be like, oh, you're gonna have that same experience as me. If you grow inside of a greenhouse, you're gonna get fungal issues. That's not the case at all. I have many friends and know many people who grow beautiful, gorgeous anthurium inside of greenhouses, and they don't have those same issues that I did. So really, it's just gonna be up to your own experience. But I do like at least starting my small anthurium in greenhouses, kind of giving them the strength to build up to be mature enough to move outside, and that's kind of what we're doing now. I'm hoping that with a little bit of size jump and more of a robust root system with some of these and just a better substrate to grow in, they'll be ready to move onto my living room shelf sometime soon. And no, I'm not gonna wait until spring or summer or whatever. We're gonna move them when they're ready. And if that means in the dead of winter, then that's what we're gonna do. I'm skipping over some of these because I've found that I have answered some of them within other questions. So I'm going to skip to this one where it says, what is the best hack that you've found for growing anthurium? To be fully honest with you, I'm not like a huge like tips and tricks hacks kind of person. I find a lot of them to be a little bit gimmicky or anecdotal or whatever. But I will say, like, the biggest, if I could take away one thing this year in terms of what I've learned in anthurium growing that has been the most crucial to how much better I've been growing it historically, I'm gonna say the least common denominator is tree fern fiber. I really don't, I don't love the idea of pushing it so much because it can be pricey if you're like anywhere besides New Zealand, basically. And it's not, and this is why I only use it for my anthurium. I find it to be a little bit unnecessary for philodendron because I find they do fine in just your regular aeroid mix. But I view tree fern fiber as such like a luxury substrate because of the price that it is. And so I don't like pushing it in that way because I don't want people to watch this and feel like, oh, now I have to get tree fern fiber, or the only way I'm gonna grow my plants nice and big is if I use tree fern fiber. But I will say that like the use of it has been incredible this year. I feel like I have some of the most healthy, robust growth, both leaf and root system, after using tree fern fiber. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could ever not use it anymore with my anthurium. It almost seems like a non-negotiable for me now. But yeah, that's probably the best or the closest thing to a hack that I can share with you guys in terms of growing anthurium. And Forgetti IX is done. I'm feeling really good about some of these up pots, and I'm just excited to show you guys some new growth, and hopefully some of them really like show up and show off, because then that means I get to show up and show off too. All right, we've only got a few more plants here, but honestly there are so many more that I could repot, so I do want to at least get through all of these questions. How do you size up seedlings faster? So I kind of talked about this a little bit in, I think it was part 2 of my collab with Bunny. I'm going to, what am I gonna do? I'm not even thinking straight. What am I even thinking? I'm going to link both of the collabs that I did with Amanda in the description, because I think if you're really interested in growing anthurium, I think that's a good kind of place to start in terms of getting a good baseline of what to work with. But a way to size up seedlings, for one, is I would say give it a lot of warmth and light in the very beginning. Don't put it in like a cold, dark place. You're not gonna see a lot of growth, especially with a root system so tiny, or seeds that are just germinating. You're not gonna see a ton of growth if it's in a really dark location. Not only that, I would say growing in a dome. So you don't necessarily need to grow it in a greenhouse per se, but if you can grow it in an enclosed little thing, maintain that moisture, maintain the humidity in there, that's really gonna help get your seedling off to a good start. And then something that I've learned recently in doing my collab with Amanda is to just start fertilizing once that first leaf comes out. I kind of assumed, and I don't know why maybe I assumed this, but I thought that the plant would maybe react poorly to fertilizer when it's so small. I wasn't so much concerned about like fertilizer burn, but I kind of felt like maybe because the plant was so small, it wouldn't really know what to do with those excess nutrients. But if you can fertilize weekly, W-E-A-K-L-Y, if you can water and fertilize weekly, I do think that's gonna help kind of speed up the growth of your seeds and your seedlings. And I have been doing that with some of my dark phoenix seedlings. I've already been fertilizing them ever since the first leaf grew. And I can already see a second leaf starting to form on the seedling, which is a lot faster than I would have seen before. Now, I don't know if that has something to do with the strength of that one seed, but that has just been my observation right now. So yeah, that's really all of the tips that I have in terms of seedlings. Again, I am not the person to talk to on how to get them nice and big fast, but that is what I do with my seedlings. Those were all of the questions in terms of like care. I'm not sure if I missed anything. I kind of felt like that was pretty all-encompassing, but the next few questions are more like my personal experience with anthuriums, not care, but like what are your favorite ones, etc., etc. So yeah, more of the like the funner questions, I guess. So the first one is, how can you afford the ridiculous prices? I only have seedling size everything. To be very just honest with you guys, a majority of my anthurium collection has been either gifted to me, given to me in trades, or I've bought them, but at very, very good prices. I think the most I've ever spent on an anthurium, and I could be totally wrong, I'm gonna see if I can get fact checked with Alice. I don't know why she always has these little niblets of information stored in her brain, but I think the most that I've spent on a plant was like 200 US, I think, and it could have been for my King of Spades. Maybe that was 150 US, but I don't recall ever really spending a ton of money on anthurium. I've actually spent more on philodendron in the past when prices were like at peak COVID prices, but I wasn't like really, I wasn't a huge anthurium person until I would say this year. So really when I was buying plants, they were mostly non-anthurium, and that's where I was spending my money. But I feel like I just got really lucky with my group of friends, and you know, they're always like so generous. They cut plants for me all the time or just give me seeds. I have friends like Amanda who spoils me, and so unfortunately I'm just like not the person to talk to in terms of like how I can afford the anthuriums that I have, because truly I can't. If I put a price tag, like a market price tag on some of these anthurium, there is no way they'd be in my house. And so with this person saying that they have seedling size everything, I honestly think that's the way to go if you want to build up your collection and get some like harder to acquire plants or some really, really cool hybrids. If you can buy, seeds, seedlings, cuttings, just be careful with cuttings, because for me, I'm not as confident propagating anthurium as I am with something. I'm not as comfortable propagating anthurium like I am with something like a philodendron. And so of course you want to be careful, but if you can just grow things from a seedling size, to me that's like your best bet, keeping costs low, because full plants, especially for really like sought after plants, they're just gonna run you into the hundreds and sometimes even the thousands for like a nice big established plant. I think another thing you can do is, if you have the means, and I don't want to like influence you to do this, but like I know people do this, if you have the means to buy a plant that's a good investment, like you know that your money is gonna pay off, and you're buying a plant that is like highly choppable, highly propagatable, you can use that as essentially leverage to either sell cuttings to buy other plants that are a little bit more expensive that you want, or you can use it as leverage for trades. Because I think most people, especially if they're not friends, like if you're just going to be doing like a random trade with someone, more than likely they're going to want something that is equivalent in value to what they have to offer. So yeah, if you can even make like one good investment, one really smart investment, and be smart with how you chop it and how you go about dispersing the cuttings and stuff, you can really start to get your collection looking nice, and then do the same thing with those plants and those plants, and it's kind of like a snowball effect, you know? But yeah, unfortunately the prices right now of anthurium are just freaking wild, and that's really why I'm not buying a ton. There's so many that I see in auctions, Facebook groups, even like importers that I've bought from before. Like one of the importers the importer that I bought my King of Spades from, and I'll link it in the description, I don't want to like gatekeep it or anything. I just saw yesterday that he has red crystal or KOS red crystal, and that's on my wish list, but I already know that it's gonna be out of my price range, so I'm not even bothering. But yeah, things are just like really, really expensive on the market right now, so I'm not really looking to buy anything at market price. So I wait for things like pop-up shows from Lauren and hope that, you know, she brings in some good plants, or I wait for like a solid trade to come up, or I cut my plants and use that as leverage to trade for other plants with people locally. So yeah, that's my best advice. See, this is what happens when I don't do the roster in the very beginning. I just keep going and going and going. The plant I was working on is my Nigrolaminum GG, and it's pushing a new leaf. I do think it's gonna be bigger than this one, and now that it's in a larger pot, I have a feeling it's gonna get big soon. Next one I'm gonna work on is my pathetic looking Ace of Spades. I have this one in pawn, but my spidey senses are saying to move it to soil, and I can kind of see some like not so happy roots in here, and I don't know, I'm not liking pawn for this plant. Yeah, lots of nasty roots, but some good ones. We have some good, we have some bad. As long as I can see some new roots, I don't go into full like, you know, ICU mode, because I can see that like it's clearly like it's alive, it's kicking. Just had a little bit of little hiccups, and just by looking at the roots, it does look like dry rot again. And that is just my experience with drainage holes right now, guys. I'm still adjusting. I am still adjusting. But I just want to get it cleaned up a little bit. Ow. I don't really want any of these mushy roots in my pot. But, you know, I'm actually happy to just see growth in general. And now that I'm looking at it, this is actually an offset from the main plant. Don't know if you can see. And most of the roots, if not, like I would say like 90% of the roots are on this new growth point. So I'm kind of tempted to separate it from the main stem to get a prop from it, because people are still wanting ace. And this is what I mean. If I can chop my plants to use as leverage, I will. It's just this plant is already so unhappy as it is. I'm like, is it even a good idea? But you know what? I'm gonna YOLO it. Let's go clean my scissor and I'm gonna chop. This could be the worst idea ever, but you know, no risk, no reward. So the next question is, if you could only keep one anthurium, which one would it be? Oh, Ermagerd. This is such a hard question. Okay, hold on, let's think about this rationally. Everybody, like, cover your ears, don't listen. Honestly, I think that if I could only keep one, it's probably, I thought I wrote an answer to this. I think it's probably gonna be my Carla Bivep. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that just because it's like a really popular anthurium right now. Like, it truly is, but like every time I look at that plant, I am just in awe of it. Like, I'm just like, why is this in my house? And I was floored to even receive it. And so I think at the present moment, that is where my heart, that's what my heart is saying, is my Carla Bivep. So here's the main anthurium stem, tiniest little stem ever. And I think I'm gonna propagate this in fluval stratum because I find that everything freaking roots so fast in there. And it's already got a brand new root sticking out of the old root. So I think we're gonna be off to a good start. And we still have the rest of the anthurium intact. Not a lot of fleshy tissue being exposed, but I am still going to dip it in my callousing hormone. I got these super stinking cute parfait cups that have lids on them, and this is what I'm going to be germinating my seeds in once they're ready to harvest on my Indo-Pappy hybrid. And I just figured, I got rid of all my seedling trays because it was just taking up so much space. I didn't really love growing in it. I would much rather have them all potted individually so that once they're ready to be sold or given to friends, I can just already give it to them in this. So like I mentioned, I am gonna be using fluval today because I really am using this only for anthurium corms and propagating little itty bitty tiny stems of things like this AOS. This is TPS water. I'm just going to wet the fluval. I love how it like sizzles when it's super dry and then it gets water. It sounds like putting something on a frying pan, and that's like one of my favorite sounds ever. Okay, so that's good. I don't want it to be too wet. I need to poke a little hole. Maybe I'll just use my little stinky pinky. And I'm just gonna bury this guy as much as I can. Wait, which one's the top? This is actually the top of it. Well, that sucks. Sorry, I know you guys can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to get it in here. And unfortunately, all of those roots, like the roots were growing upward, and so it's kind of like sticking out, and I don't want to bury it upside down, so I'm gonna just try and cover a little bit more if I can, but it's fine because it's gonna be high humidity in here anyway, so it shouldn't dry out. So here's what it looks like. It's just in there real good. gonna tuck it in, and then I'm gonna be putting this in my tent, getting lots of light and a little bit more warmth than anywhere else in the house. The only thing with the tops of these are they're kind of hard to put on sometimes. Like, you really have to like push it in. Oh, and it cracked. That's okay. Maybe we'll have a little bit of airflow in there. I just need to label this. Sorry, I've been getting off topic here. What was the question? Oh, yeah, so that would be my answer right now, but honestly, ask me again in a month and it's probably gonna change. It's hard for me to pick because I love each of them for different reasons. Hey, stay. I love them for different reasons. And then this guy is going in here. I'm not gonna go too much bigger because I am scared of this plant, but I do want to go larger than that old vessel. Moving on, moving on. What would your dream hybrid be? Okay, so I actually wrote down 3 dream plants of mine, and I'm gonna try and be very small, or I'll probably cover myself a little bit. My first dream hybrid would be red vein dark phoenix as mother, Cuniolense as father. My dream outcome for this hybrid would be the shape of the Cuna, super round and just cute and almost with a puffy leaf, but with the venation of the dark phoenix. The venation and maybe a little bit of that like turtley bolete texture, a little bit. So that would be my dream hybrid number 1. Second dream hybrid, again, mother, red vein dark phoenix, father, king of spades. I don't know, I feel like this could go so many ways in terms of like which traits I would like the most from each parent, but for this hybrid specifically, it would be cool to have the shape of the red vein dark phoenix, the same leaf texture maybe, and just think of like the red vein dark phoenix leaf itself, but substitute those veins for the KOS venation and have it be red like the red vein dark phoenix. I'm just like a sucker for any anthurium that has like pink or red in it. It just is so freaking magical. I love it a lot. Oh, I didn't inoculate this. So that would be my second dream hybrid. And then my third dream hybrid would be KOS as mother, king of spades as mother, and then the father, Hoff red sinus. I think it would be really cool to have a king of spades that has the bolateness of the Hoff red sinus, have that really iconic red sinus, obviously, but then have the venation of the king of spades. Might be hard to imagine, but just, oh, that would be so delicious to me. Honestly, anything crossed with the king of spades sounds like it would be delicious, but I find that they don't really, I mean, not only is it my slowest growing anthurium, this is not deep enough, that's what she said. Not only is the king of spades such a slow grower, at least for me, it just doesn't really, well, Lauren says that it doesn't really make a good mother plant. Like, I don't know if she meant like the leaves just like tank after pollinating it, or if it's just like not great at producing seed. I don't know personally because I've never had a KOS flower and I've never witnessed pollination of a king of spades, but I feel like there's not a ton of king of spades hybrids out there. The only one that I've really seen for sale recently is the king of spades red crystal, which is so freaking pretty. I mean, I know that it's available through some importers, so it's probably not going to be impossible to own, but again, I'm not sure I'm in a place right now where I should be shelling out hundreds of dollars for an anthurium. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention on the topic of like how do you afford plants. If you can go in with your friends, oops, I broke that root. If you can go in with your friends and buy like a mother plant or just buy any plant, even if it is a seedling, and you guys designate one person that you trust the most, whoever's the best at growing anthurium, let them grow it out and then take cuttings later. You'll save even more money that way. You can also do the thing where, like me and Alice did this with philodendron back in the day. We both really wanted the patty and the hetero, so one of us bought the patty, one of us bought the hetero, and then we just swapped cuttings later once they were ready to be chopped. But of course you gotta find some plant friends you trust first, so that might be the most difficult part. This one was difficult. It was difficult because the roots were growing like outward and like almost up, so it was kind of hard to like get it in there, like tucked in there, but I have a feeling this one's gonna freaking throw a fit after. Of all of the ones that I've repotted so far, I fear for this one's life the most. Now I'm going to do the Dark Phoenix seedlings. Because I mentioned this in the anthurium video, I don't want the roots to intertwine too much. Now that it's getting bigger, I am nervous though because one of them is pushing another leaf and I'm kind of scared to touch it, but I don't want to wait any longer. And I'm not going to do parfait cups. I do think I'm still going to keep it in this same cup size because I think that this is a pretty decent size for one single seedling, especially at the size that they're at now. I'm just gonna empty this into here because it's still good. Please don't mess this up, Sherm. Okay, next question. Where do you think the anthurium craze is going? Hard to say. Hard to say, hard to say. I feel like we're gonna be on this train a little bit longer in terms of the hybridizing, just because as more hybrids come out now there's even more hybrids to hybridize it with, and there's like a lot of like cool mutations coming out of hybrids. I don't know why I feel this, but I kind of feel like variegated anthurium are going to become more accessible for some reason. Don't know why, maybe not in the next year, but maybe in the next 2 years. I'm not at like, I do want to own a variegated anthurium at some point just for the experience of growing it, but I don't think I'd ever pay the prices that they are now. But I kind of see that that's where it could be going. I forgot to dip my Ace of Spades in the callousing hormone. Anywho, these have amazing roots. They look so fuzzy and delicious. So let's just, I think I'll do leca down at the bottom though, because I don't want, I just don't want it to hold on to too much moisture for too long. Yeah, I kind of think we're gonna be on this, I guess to answer it simply, I think where the anthurium craze is going in the next year, I still think we're gonna be on this whole train of hybridizing anthurium. Right now, the huge thing is the dark, sinister, velvety looking anthurium. I think I can hear my neighbor's dishwasher. But I kind of feel like the love for really crystally white veined anthuriums are going to pick up. I kind of see those two things happening in tandem, but I think for the purpose of just giving one solid answer, I still think we're gonna be on this train of, you know, the hybrid thing, the dark velvety anthurium thing. Best not that expensive dark leafed anthurium. I guess it would depend what your definition of inexpensive is or expensive is. I'm guessing this means like just not like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Again, going back to the hybrid thing, I think because so many people are learning to hybridize and so many growers are hybridizing, I think that you can find some really cool mutts or hybrids for a lot cheaper than you could historically. Specifically, I feel like a lot of people rag on like Indo-Pappy hybrids just because it's like not from Ecuador or something, but there's actually been some really nice hybrids coming out of Indonesia. My Indo-Pappy hybrid, for example, like that, I love that plant a lot, and I know that probably in better growing conditions it can get even darker, and I would consider that like a really nice dark leaf anthurium. Granted, it did cost me, I want to say that I paid at least like 100 USD for it, but again, that was back in like COVID era times. So you can find like way cheaper Indo-Pappy hybrids now. I've seen some nice Ace of Spades hybrids being sold in Facebook groups that I'm just like, oh, that didn't have a high reserve, or that didn't even go for that much. Like I could have afforded it. Yeah, of course they're gonna be like seedling size or even seeds or something. But I do think some of these Ace of Spades hybrids that are floating around are really cool too, and aren't gonna run you as much as like a pure Ace of Spades. I would say even to, oh, but she said velvety. Oh no, dark leaf anthurium. Luxe hybrids, even Luxe, like luxurians before, I remember when I first started seeing them on import lists, they were like 600 USD, like they were freaking crazy. And now you can get like a decent size one for like 50 bucks. So if you can get a Luxe or a Luxe hybrid, that'd be cool. I didn't inoculate this one. It's okay, I'm using Billions water. The next question is, what is your dream anthurium plant setup? Honestly, my dream, my absolute dream in life is to have a house that has a sunroom connected to it, or even not like an atrium, but like, you know, those spaces that like kind of act as like an outdoor indoor area where you can set up like seating and stuff, and like there's like mesh walls and stuff. Like I would totally utilize that as a greenhouse, but my ideal is a sunroom that's attached to a house. And if you guys don't know what a sunroom is, hopefully I'm just gonna put in a picture of an example of a sunroom in a home, and you see these a lot in older homes. And when we go to buy a house, I kind of hope that it's an older home because I want one with a lot of character, one that I can kind of fix up a little myself. And I really love the features of old homes more than the new ones. So yeah, a sunroom would be my like ideal plant setup, because not only can I utilize light from everywhere because it's literally a sunroom and there's only really the one wall that connects it to the house, I can also still utilize grow lights in there when it is darker. Yeah, that would be my number one ideal plant setup. But if I could not have that, my second choice would be a full Soltech setup. I've talked about this if you guys watched my sort of podcast style Q&A, not Q&A, but my little chat with Alice that went up earlier this month. We talked about influencer icks, and it kind of led to this topic of Soltech and how I was saying like I would love to be sponsored by them, I would love to collaborate with them, but I feel weird about it, honestly, because I can't afford the setup myself. Like the full setup is like well over, I think, $1,000 for like the track light system with like 4 lights. It's really, really expensive. I mean, the bulbs themselves were like, how much did I pay for each of them? I did buy 2 Soltech lights. They were not gifted to me. And I paid, oh, and I used a discount. I paid 236 Canadian for 2 grow light bulbs, just the bulbs, not the pendant, just the bulb itself. Sorry, really quickly, this is my red crystal that looks like cockapoo. It's already in this tree fern fiber mix, but something's going on in here, and I really just want to kind of check out what's happening in here. I don't know if like the stem is rotting or what, but yeah, this is just a little check-in plus repot. So anyway, My dream setup would be like both in my plant room and in the living room to have track lights here so that I didn't need to utilize these bar lights everywhere. And the reason why I like the track lighting idea so much is because your leaves are more likely gonna face forward than face up. Like if you notice a lot of my plants in here, you'll see that the leaves are like this rather than like this. And Soltech lights are super strong and they have the perfect color temperature. They nailed it with the color temp on the Soltech lights. But yeah, that would be like my dream, to have a complete Soltech setup in basically every room that had a plant in it. I think the only way I would feel okay with doing like a sponsored Soltech video or like a Soltech collab is if they were able to offer me like a sizable discount for people watching. And I don't mean like 5-10% because that's really not much, but you know, if I could offer like even a 15 to 20% discount, 15 to 20% discount code, I'd feel better about it. But I guess like in terms of holding myself to the standards that I set out for myself early in this YouTube thing, I don't want to push any products that I don't believe in myself or I would find no use in them. And two, if it was out of my price range. I'm not like super wealthy, but I'm also not at a point where like I can't afford nice things if I wanted to. I'm really just right there in middle class. And I don't know, I just feel like it's not that it's not fair, but I just feel weird about pushing a product that is so wildly expensive. And yeah, that's just how I feel. Again, and I said this in my other video, like I could be shooting myself in the foot if anyone at Soltech saw this and was like, well, fine, well, we haven't collaborated with you, but now we definitely won't. But I hope they kind of understand like where I'm coming from too. Not that they've ever like approached me or anything, but I'm just saying if I ever got to the level where they wanted to sponsor a channel like this, I don't know how I'd feel. I think I'd really have to like negotiate my terms, or I'd have to just make sure I felt like I was doing the right thing. And I really don't think any of you hold me, I don't think any of you hold me to the same standard that I hold myself to, especially when it comes to like a sponsored YouTube video and it's not just like a quick Instagram collab, just because it does take a lot of woman hours and time and energy to produce one of these videos. Yeah, it is kind of like getting paid for making the video, but I rely on my views and ad revenue within the video to pay for the time that I'm spending on these videos. But yeah, I'm not saying that I wouldn't be so freaking stoked if Soltech one day was like, we want to send you a full track lighting system. It would be so hard for me to say no, but again, I just have to, like, I don't know, I feel like I'd need to be able to offer something to you guys if I did that. Also, on that topic, I kind of wish my plant room was a little bit bigger. I know that, like Alice has said this, it looks a lot bigger in photos and videos, but it's actually quite small. And not only that, I'm sharing it with our storage stuff too, so it's like this whole room is not just dedicated to my plant stuff. So to have a little bit of a bigger plant room would be nice. Maybe having even one window in here would be great. But other than that, I'm actually pretty happy with the setup that I have in my house, and I'm not sure there's a lot I would change. So the verdict on this red crystal, the roots look fine. I really only pulled off the tiniest little bit of rotted roots, but everything else is brand new and looking good. And I actually can see 2 auxiliary buds on this stem that are waking up now. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just gonna stick it back into the same substrate. I'm gonna go into a pot that's a little bit, I would say it's equivalent in size. This one's just taller, whereas this one is wider. And I do have kind of like a whitish root system. So yeah, I'm just gonna go with that, and I'm not gonna do any leca down at the bottom, I don't think. Hopefully all this thing needs is just time to like know, sort itself out. But I've kind of had this for a decent amount of time, and so many of the plants that I got from Amanda at the same time have already grown so much. But again, like I said in the anthurium video, I do think Alice kind of struggled with this plant a bit when it was really small, so maybe that's just the red crystal way. But the good thing is I have a decent stem size. I didn't want to chop it. And the fact that the roots were nice and healthy, I feel like we just need to come out of the ICU. I don't know, so this has been sitting in my plant, or in my tent, and I don't know if maybe it's too warm in there, but at the same time, Alice also has her red crystal in the tent. I think if anything, I'll push this more towards the front of my tent where it's getting more airflow because I'm not closing it. The door is always open, and maybe that'll do the trick, because before it was kind of like deep in my tent where it was getting a lot of light and it was getting a lot of warmth. This is actually the last plant that I have, but honestly I'm probably gonna have to pull a few more plants to repot because I still have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 more plants to repot. Or I mean, I have 5 more questions to answer. So maybe I might need to grab one more. But this one is my anthurium PAP 5 self. This one's in pon. I'm kind of looking at some of the roots on the side there and they don't look wonderful. And so I definitely want to move this into soil and just kind of remove any gross roots in here. The next question is, if you had to get rid of some anthurium, which one would they be? The first one on the top of my head, honestly, is gonna be my subsignatum papilolaminum, just because that one has given me so much grief in the last like year. The growth on it has been so like mediocre and just pathetic. And then when I do get a nice leaf, it eventually just starts turning yellow. And so yeah, that plant just doesn't like me. So I don't think I'd really have a hard time getting rid of that plant if I absolutely had to. So that's the first one that comes to mind. The second one might be like one of my Lux hybrids, maybe one that looks super similar to the other ones. Like I wouldn't get rid of like my Lux Ralph Lauren Fort Sherman for sure, because that one is delicious and very, very special. Maybe like my Mag Lux or my Crystal Lux or something, because they look so similar. I could probably do without one of them. And again, we're talking hypothetical, like if I really, really had to, like you were gonna tickle me to death if I didn't choose. These roots are nasty. I don't like it. This is not dry rot. This is just straight up rot. And I don't know the reason why. I don't. Could be a plethora of things. Can't blame no drainage, because this is growing with drainage. But again, I'm telling y'all, I kill more things with drainage holes than without. And then maybe for a third one to get rid of, I feel like a betrayer saying this, because it was my first strap leaf anthurium and was like really my gateway strap leaf anthurium, but probably my vitarifolium, only because I love the Winlingeri so much more. I love the Polydiflorum so much more, and now I have 2 Polydiflorums that are actually growing really well. Yeah, I don't know if the vitarifolium can really compete with it anymore. So yeah, maybe that one, but don't tell it that because I don't want to hurt its feelings. Ow. I'm contemplating chopping this leaf off. I feel like it's really not doing anything for this plant, so I think that's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna chop her off. We're gonna go back down to a stump and see what happens. Bye-bye. So much rot on this thing. Why are you the way that you are? Maybe I won't need another plant to repot, because this one is This one's giving me a run for my money. Okay, so the next one is, how do you find out about rare seedlings being sold? Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I find out through my friends. My friends are way more into, I'm gonna say, anthurium culture than I am. I hear about all the tea, I hear about all the new trends and all the things that's happening in the anthurium world. I hear it from my friends. I don't spend a lot of time in anthurium groups reading and going through threads. Like, I don't know why, it's just, I mean, I've been kind of doing it lately because I've had to do a lot of research lately about some of the plants that I have, and I'm just curious how other people are growing their plants. But yeah, basically anytime like a really cool plant comes out or like something is for sale, people want to pre-order something, I probably heard it from a friend. I'm rarely the one that finds a cool anthurium and shows it to the group. And that's just the tea. But I guess to answer your question, a lot of them find out about this because they follow a lot of anthurium accounts. They follow a lot of anthurium growers, and they're in a lot more anthurium groups than I am in. I'm only in 2 anthurium groups right now and don't really have a plan to join anymore. I just feel like I'm in enough Facebook plant groups. I can only take so much. So yeah, I just rely on my friends. But I guess, yeah, if you can get on Instagram, follow all the big growers, and get on Facebook and join anthurium groups with like a large group member count, that's probably how you're gonna find out about a lot of the cool seeds being made. Okay, here's my dilemma. I use a leafless chunk, a leafless stick like this as an opportunity to propagate as well. And this is actually a decent sized stem. And if I chop right in the middle, I'll have roots on both cuttings. And so since I'm basically starting over, I'm gonna chop. I'm gonna do it. The next question is, what is a smarter investment? Seedlings or clones? Okay, let me give you there's not many, but let me just kind of give you the pros and cons of both. So if you're gonna buy a clone, I guess investment wise, if you're buying one that's like a cool mutation or has features that are really like sought after right now, meaning like if it has darker leaves than normal, or a more narrow leaf than normal, or a rounder leaf than normal, different venation, different sinus, investing in clones like that is probably a good idea if there's a lot of demand in it or for it. But the cool thing with seedlings is that you can kind of be surprised with seedling variability. You know, you never know if your seedling is going to be variegated. You never know if it's going to carry a cool mutation that the mother plant doesn't have or the other seeds don't have, but it's a gamble. You know, it really is. I don't know what's smarter, but my gut is saying a clone just because you know exactly what you're gonna get, but the seedling thing can also surprise you. I think that answer sucks, but it's my best one. It's all I've got for you. Now I need 2 vessels for this, and I think I like still doing no drainage with my props. Not the prettiest vessel, but she'll do. One of these has a larger root system than the other. And I'm not gonna do pon again. I'm gonna do the tree fern fiber mix because I'm just feeling better about that in general. I need to remember to label these as soon as I'm done here, else I'm gonna forget what everything is. Okay, the next question is, what is your favorite anthurium right now? Like I said earlier, the Carla Bevep is one that currently has me in an absolute chokehold, but if I could choose another one, I think it's gonna be a toss-up between my tofu gettii or my Polydiflorum narrow. I am loving that plant right now. Like, I just get so happy when I see it. It's such a cool little thing and it's growing so well for me. And it's just been so good to me in general. So where did my red crystal go? Second smaller one is gonna go in this little guy. And I do plan on selling one of these when it pops a leaf. I'm actually gonna dip this one in callusing hormone because she's kind of a thickie. Oh gosh. Get it on its little booty. This smells so good. I probably shouldn't smell it, but it just smells like cinnamon. Okay, and then the last question. What is the most difficult anthurium in your collection? Probably my red crystal. I feel like I haven't been able to figure that plant out yet. And I don't know what it is. So red crystal I have struggled with. I already killed one red crystal, which I was devastated about, and I am determined to not let that happen again this time around. But yeah, just not feeling super confident in my abilities, but I'm gonna try. And then a second one, and this might surprise some people because I've heard like through the grapevine that this is like one of people's easiest. Nigrolaminum Gigi. I've killed like 3 or 4 of them already now, and I just can't grow them. They all freaking hate me. I deal with like the melted leaves or the leaf that like comes out and is not fully unfurled yet, and then it just dries up and turns to nothing. The same thing happened with the last leaf that came out on the Nigro Gigi. I thought I had turned a corner because I had 2 decent sized leaves, and then a third one came out, and now the other 2 leaves have like died off, and then the new growth point just turned into a Rice Krispie. So we're back where we started, apparently. I'm just gonna load up some of these little guys into here. I'm sorry that I haven't been cleaning up as I go, and you guys have just been staring at dirty vessels. Yeah. I'm so excited though because we got a new sink faucet. I don't know if you guys remember my old one that looked like a weird robot thing. It's such an unnecessary and stupid design. It was so hard to clean anything in that sink. It was always loose. Like, it wouldn't stand up straight. It would just kind of fall. I know if you guys don't remember what my sink looks like, you're probably like, what are you talking about? But it was just an awful sink. And so we got a normal one, just your regular sink that has the regular little spout to like clean up the sink. And I'm like, you know what? I'm excited to wash these vessels because I've got a real sink now. I got a regular sink. I like double inoculating now, especially since I'm not using drainage holes. Since I am using drainage holes, I always confuse that when I'm saying it out loud. I can't fit the 2 larger ones in there, so I'll do that off camera. But I just want to water these really quickly. And again, just using TPS water. I've probably put about a teaspoon of TPS in this 2.5 liter jug. Wow, so that's heavy. So that is the end of my Q&A. I'm just gonna water these really quickly, and then I'm gonna just take you guys through my current wish list once I get done doing this, because I can't think and water at the same time unless you guys want to see water spill everywhere. I just had the most terrifying moment. I didn't know if my mic was plugged in. Oh my gosh, I would have been so pissed if I was filming for that long without any audio. Okay, quickly, I'm gonna scooch this away. What is that? Oh. Scooch this way, and I'm gonna insert photos as I'm talking. So my first wish list plant is the Anthurium circus peanuts. I love this plant so much. This one has been on my wish list for a while. I don't see it being offered very often, and when it is, the price always makes me gag a little bit. And as much as I love that plant, I've already made a truce with myself that I'm no longer gonna be spending the money that I usually, not usually, but that I used to spend on plants. I really, and I don't know if this is naive, but I don't wanna spend any more than $100 on a plant ever again if I can help it. It's just not, it's not sustainable for me, especially with the plans that I have, trying to save for a house. To me, it's just not worth it. I would much rather wait until, even if it's years down the line, where they become more accessible, or I can acquire a stump in a trade or partial trade, or if I can get a stump for less than $100, no matter when that would be. So next one is the Hoff Red Sinus. And I know if Marcus is watching this, oh my gosh, you're gonna be like, I literally have been offering it to you, and I know you have. I don't know why. I'm so scared to take it. I'm so scared to take it. I'm so scared I'm gonna screw it up. And like, for the amount of money that you can get for the Hoff Red Sinus, I'm like, I'm not worth it. Just don't. And it's so kind that Marcus has offered it to me, but I don't know. I'm really scared. I'm really scared to own this plant because it's so beautiful. It's just the most perfect leaf color, leaf shape, leaf texture, the sinus, the color of the sinus. It's just everything. It literally gives me goosebumps. I fell in love with it from the moment I saw it online, and there was part of me that thought it was heavily edited. I'm like, no, this is not a real plant. But it's real. It's real. It sucks that it's real, and it's so good. I mentioned before the dark red vein dark phoenix. Love the dark phoenix. Love the red vein one even more. Yeah. Again, this is another plant that I saw where I'm like, Photoshop, photo editing. No, it's real. It's real. I love this plant a lot. The next one is going to be a Black Widow Michelle. I only saw this one recently and was like, yep. I like this one. As much as I love a good, like, sinister dark leaf anthurium, I still have this affinity for the really bright veined ones, especially if it has like a reddish tint to it or red venation. It's just calls to me. So would love to add this to the collection. I don't know what they're going for market price, nor do I think I want to know. And then the next one is a Dressleri. Of course, like, this one is just like token dark leaf anthurium, just so beautiful. I've kind of heard they can be really finicky and hard to grow, so there's a part of me that like wants to add it to my wish list, but almost feels like maybe it should be on that, in that category of wish list where I'm okay never owning it, like always aspiring to own it but never actually owning it. I don't know, but I do love the dress. Another one, and this is a very recent, is a Carla Blackier, just a straight up Carla. I have definitely grown to love this plant over the last year for sure. It has some of the most beautiful venation ever, so bright, so distinct from any other anthurium out there. Like, you know when something is crossed with a dress, or not dress, with a Carla, because it just has that like iconic Carla venation. And I love the shape of the leaf and the color of the leaf as well. And I just feel like I can envision it on my plant shelf, and it would just be such a nice, just a nice little addition. And then, mentioned this already, but a KOS crystal would be the last plant on my wish list. I think that this one is probably, of all of them on my wish list, is the most attainable, I would say. But again, not really wanting to spend more than $100 on a plant. So I don't know if that'll happen anytime soon, but I know a lot more are floating around. There's lots of people that have been selling cuttings of them, and so I kind of feel like my time might be approaching. Whether it's anytime soon, your guess is as good as mine. But that is my little anthurium wish list. I don't have a ton. I'm very selective and careful now about who I'm adding to the wish list, just because I've kind of enjoyed having a smaller collection. I've been able to care for my plants a lot better now that the collection is a lot smaller, and I've had to buy a second shelf for my anthurium because of how much my anthurium collection has been growing. And so I don't really want to add any more to them unless I really, really, really love them. So that is where I am now. Anywho, I don't know if you guys can tell, but my voice is cutting out. I filmed the anthurium tour only 3 days ago now, and so my voice is just shot. So I'm gonna get out of here. I hope you guys got some use out of some of the Q&A questions, maybe added some anthurium to your wish list. So thank you guys for hanging out with me again for another Saturday upload. If you liked it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to watch the announcement video that is going up right after this, and I will see you soon.